Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are teeing off into something really fascinating. A trading card game called T-Legion.
Yeah, it's got this wild premise.
It really does. It merges like high fantasy dueling, you've got knights, dragons, powerful relics, all that cool stuff.
With the precision and, frankly, the high-stakes pressure of golf.
Exactly. It sounds kind of nuts, but the goal is literally to win the hole by commanding your dragon.
And it works surprisingly well. It's not just, dragons breathing fire randomly. You're managing yardage, thinking about hazards, the lie of the land. It's quite tactical.
For sure. And there's this constant tension, right, between your strategy and the unpredictable nature of the swing. Everything boils down to this 1d6 strike roll.
That die roll dictates so much.
Which is the perfect lead-in to our mission today. We're doing a deep dive specifically on one faction that really leans into that unpredictability.
Yes, the Stormscales.
The Stormscale Dragons. They are essentially chaos given form in this game. All about volatility, lightning speed, chain reactions.
They're the storm-charged hybrids. And their whole philosophy, their whole way of playing is built around this idea: adaptation is victory.
And they're tied to the takeaway phase of the golf swing. That initial sudden burst of energy.
And our quick backswing, yeah. It perfectly captures their style.
We're definitely going to unpack how that kinetic energy turns into strategy. But first, I think we need to map out the course, so to speak. Understand the battlefield where these Stormscales operate. Okay, so let's set the stage. To really get why the Stormscale speed matters, we got to understand the structure they're working within. Or maybe working against. What's the command center here?
That's the knight. Your knight is like your commander, your player avatar. They stay put in the team ground zone.
Right back at the start.
And crucially, the knight gets exactly one command per turn. That's it. Just one.
One action. So what can they do with that command?
3 basic things. Order a dragon to strike, tell everyone to defend, or activate a specific ability on a dragon or maybe a relic. That one command limit is like the core tempo constraint of the whole game.
And the knight isn't really a fighter themselves, are they? They're directing traffic.
Pretty much. They only swing the club themselves if things have gone really badly. Like, if your whole lance zone, that's the dragon battleground, is empty, it's a last resort.
Okay, so the lance zone is where the dragons are, where the action happens. And it's divided up.
Yeah, it's split into slots that actually correspond to golf clubs. Putter, wedges, irons, hybrids, woods, driver. 8 main slots.
But you can't just stick any dragon anywhere, can you? This is where that golf logic really bites, the yardage lock.
The yardage lock, or the YDS constraint. This is maybe the most critical rule for deck building and playing. Every dragon card has a YDS stat printed on it yards.
And that number dictates exactly which lance slot it can go into.
Precisely. Each slot has a specific yardage band. So, for example, maybe the 5-iron slot requires a dragon with, say, 210, 230 YDS. If your dragon's YDS is outside that band, it just can't occupy that slot.
So a 300-plus YDS dragon has to be in the driver slot. A short-range one, maybe 100 YDS, is stuck in the putter slot.
Yeah.
It forces you to use the right club for the distance.
Exactly. It keeps you honest with the golf simulation side of things. But
yeah,
here's where it gets interesting tactically. What if a dragon's YDS changes during the game?
Okay. Like maybe I use a relic, or an ability to mess with my opponent's dragon. Let's say they have a 4H hybrid dragon, normally in the 240, 270 YDS range.
Right, the 4 hybrid slot.
And I hit it with something that drops its YDS down to, 200. Now it's outside the legal band for that 4H slot. What happens? Does it get destroyed? Move.
No, this is the key control mechanic. The dragon stays right there in the 4H slot. It still takes up space, but it becomes compromised.
Compromised how?
If its current YDS is outside the legal range for the slot it's sitting in, it simply cannot strike. It's still there, it might have abilities, it can be targeted, but it can't make an attack until its YDS gets back into the proper range.
Wow, okay. So you can effectively shut down a major threat without actually removing it, just by manipulating its yardage. That makes stats really dynamic.
Absolutely. Which is why understanding the core stats is vital. Should we quickly run through those?
Yeah, good idea. What are the key numbers on a card?
Okay, you've got GP, game points. This is kind of like your life total tied to your knight, but also like the score for the hole. If your knight's GP hits 0, you lose.
Got it. Health and score combined.
Then HD, hit damage. That's pretty straightforward how hard the dragon hits when it strikes.
Makes sense. Damage output.
DG is Dragon Guard. That's its toughness, its defense, how much damage it can soak up before being affected or potentially removed.
Well, that's okay.
And finally, YDS, yards. As we just covered, that's the crucial stat for placement in determining if a dragon is compromised or ready to strike. Dictates its role on the course.
GP, HD, DG, YDS. Got it. So, connecting this back to our main subject, the Stormscales. You said they're masters of the hybrids.
They really are. Their primary turf is the 4H slot, the 4 hybrid. That's the 240, 270 YDS band we mentioned.
And that's not just random, is it? There's a reason they're linked to the hybrid club.
Oh, definitely. Think about what a hybrid club is in golf. It's designed for versatility, right? It bridges the gap between irons and fairway widths. You can hit it well from the fairway, but it's also decent out of the rough, sometimes even bunkers.
It's adaptable.
Exactly. It's meant to handle tricky situations, transitional distances. And that philosophy of adaptability is baked right into the Stormscales playstyle. That 4H slot is their launching pad for all those chain combos and speedy plays.
Okay, so it's the perfect spot for a faction built on flexibility and maybe controlled chaos.
Precisely. It's a zone that inherently involves a bit more variance, but also huge potential if you can manage it.
Which brings us back to that universal mechanic, the dice roll. The 1d6 that decides everything. Since Stormscales are the variance faction, we really need to understand this roll.
Yeah, this 1 to 6 scale is the heart of T-Legion's drama. Every single time a dragon strikes, or you use a relic with a shot shape effect, you roll 1 6-sided die.
And the outcome isn't just pass-fail. It's a scale from amazing to disastrous.
Totally. Low rolls are good, a 1 is perfect, straight down the middle, maybe bonus damage, extra effects, best possible outcome.
Sweet. What about 2 and 3?
2 is usually a controlled draw, powerful, good impact. 3 is typically a controlled fade solid, maybe a small defensive perk or good positioning. These are your reliable, keep things moving results. You're happy with these.
But then things get dicey starting at 4. And for Stormscales, managing these outcomes is everything, right?
Absolutely critical, because rolls 4, 5, and 6 represent mishits, and mishits lead to hazards.
Okay, break those down. What's a 4?
A 4 is a hook. You've pulled the shot left. Mechanically, this risks landing you in the bunker hazard.
And a 5?
A 5 is a slice. Pushed it right. That risks the rough hazard. Both bunker and rough immediately compromise the dragon that landed there. Big problems.
Compromise meaning penalties, hard to get out.
Yes, penalties to stats. And crucially, it often costs significant resources or your next turn's command just to get them out of the hazard and back into fighting shape. It's a massive tempo loss.
Okay, so 4 and 5 are bad. What's the absolute worst?
The dreaded 6. That's a shank. A catastrophic mishit, maybe a huge gust of wind, total whiff. Game-wise, this risks the really bad stuff. The water hazard, or even going out of bounds, OB.
And if your dragon goes swimming or OB?
It's immediately exhausted and removed from the land zone entirely. Gone from the board. Getting it back into your hand, let alone back into play, usually costs a lot. Like maybe you have to sacrifice a relic you control or spend 2 night commands on future turns just for retrieval. It stalls your game completely.
Wow, so hitting a 6 is potentially game-losing territory. You lose the dragon and multiple future actions just trying to recover?
Exactly. Your opponent just gained a huge amount of tempo while you're busy fishing your dragon out of the lake. Understanding this high cost of failure, especially for rolls 4, 5, and 6, makes the Stormscales abilities related to hazards make so much more sense. They need to deal with this.
Right. So, knowing how badly a mishit can derail your game, we can now properly frame the Stormscales. Their whole identity is built around navigating, manipulating, and sometimes even benefiting from that risky 1 to 6 dice roll.
Let's start with their whole vibe. They aren't just dragons, they're storm dragons, specifically called the Forgers of Hybrids.
Yeah, the flavor is intense. They embody unstable, crackling energy. Even their clubs aren't smooth metal. The lore describes them as lightning-infused steel, forged where electric breath attacks collide. The volatility is part of their very being.
And their color scheme screams that energy too, doesn't it? It's not subtle.
Not at all. The source material highlights this really vibrant, almost jarring palette. You've got lightning yellow like a bright flash, paired with a sharp electric green. Very high contrast.
Yellow and green. Intense. And then accented with this striking storm glow violet, it gives them this otherworldly, charged look. It's not earthy and grounded like the Stonebacks or fiery red like the Flame Wings. It looks like an energy surge is happening right now.
That visual definitely matches the speed and volatility we're talking about. And this ties directly into their core philosophy and their connection to that specific part of the Gulf Swing.
Absolutely. Their main philosophy is stated as adaptation is victory. which is reinforced by this other great line, every storm begins with a backswing.
A backswing, which links them to the takeaway swing zone.
Exactly. The takeaway is that very first move in the golf swing. It's where you go from stationary to generating all that power and momentum, like instantly. It's a sudden shift.
So in game terms, that instant acceleration has to mean getting actions quickly, bypassing normal limits.
That's the mechanical translation. It points to a playstyle built around doing things fast. Quick summons onto the board, and most importantly, triggering chain effects. Doing multiple things in sequence rapidly.
Like they're trying to replicate that burst of energy from the takeaway before the opponent can even react or set their feet.
Precisely. They want the game to be decided in that initial flurry of action. They want to leverage that momentum surge.
It almost feels like their goal is to break the game's fundamental rule that one knight command per turn by finding ways to string multiple effects together off that single command.
That's a perfect way to put it. They occupy the variant speed niche in the T-Legion faction ecosystem. They aim to overload the opponent with actions.
Okay, so how does that role compare to the other big factions we know, like the Flamewings and the Stonebacks? What's the contrast?
It's a really clear triangle.
Yeah.
The Flamewings are fire element associated with drivers. They're pure, unadulterated aggression.
Rail power.
Yeah, their focus is maximizing hit damage, HD. They're linked to the stance swing zone, that final committed position before unleashing maximum force. They want that one perfect, devastating hit.
Okay, Flamewings, max damage. What about Stonebacks?
Stonebacks are earth element linked to irons. They are the polar opposite, defense and endurance. Their swing zone is the grip control, stability.
So they want to last. High defense.
Yeah, exactly. High Dragon Guard, DG. Maybe ways to regain game points, DP. They want to outlast you, grind you down, weather the storm. They're built for consistency and stability.
So Flamewings hit hard, Stonebacks defend well. Where do Stormscales fit in that dynamic? Speed and what else?
Speed and volume of actions. While Flamewings want the single biggest number and Stonebacks want to prevent numbers altogether, Stormscales want to generate lots of smaller actions quickly. They might sacrifice a bit of raw HD or DG on individual dragons.
If it means they get to trigger an extra strike or draw an extra card.
Precisely. They're playing the action economy game. They are the kinetic energy faction. They want to win fast through a flurry of chained effects, which is the total opposite of the Stoneback's slow grind or the Flamewing's single power shot strategy.
So their strength isn't necessarily hitting the hardest, but hitting the most often and messing with the tempo.
Exactly. They aim to leverage and manipulate the inherent inconsistency of that D6 roll to generate more actions than you can handle.
Okay, this is where we need to get into the nitty-gritty. This speed and volatility. Managing it seems key. You mentioned chain combos are how they get around the one command limit. How does that actually work on the cards?
It's all about triggered abilities and specific keywords found in their codex, their card pool. Their whole playstyle relies on effects that say, basically, if you succeed at X, you immediately get to do Y. The core mechanics enabling this are chain effects and abilities that grant strike twice.
Can we walk through an example? Let's say I'm the Stormscale player. My knight gives the command to strike to one of my dragons in the 4H slot.
Okay, let's call your dragon Voltwing Rider. The knight commands Voltwing Rider to strike. You roll the d6.
Let's say I roll a 2. That's a draw, strong hit, good result.
Right. Now, Voltwing Rider's ability might read something like, if this dragon's strike result is an even number trigger, chain effect, this dragon gains strike twice until end of turn.
Whoa, okay, so because I rolled an even number, the 2, the ability triggers during the resolution of the first strike command.
Exactly. The initial success fuels the next action. You resolve the first strike's damage and effects, and then, because of the chain effect granting strike twice, you immediately get to make a second strike with Voltwing Rider.
All from the single knight command. That's huge. That's 2 damage instances, 2 chances for my opponent to land in a hazard, maybe.
And potentially 2 more chances to trigger other abilities, maybe even on other dragons if you have effects that key off successful strikes. You can see how quickly this can snowball. You might resolve 3, 4, even 5 damaging actions in the time your opponent expected just 1. That's the takeaway momentum in action.
But wait, if I'm striking twice or triggering multiple effects that involve rolling the die, I'm rolling that d6 way more often than my opponent, right?
That's the catch, absolutely.
So statistically, my chances of rolling those bad numbers, the 4, 5, or 6 that lead to hazards, must go way up compared to someone making just 1 strike per turn.
Precisely. That leads us straight into their other core mechanical identity, variance management. This is the tightrope they walk.
They embrace the chaos to get the speed, but they need tools to stop it from blowing up in their face.
Exactly. Their effects are often described with words like unpredictable, maybe letting you draw extra cards unexpectedly or bend the normal shot paths. And mechanically, this relies heavily on two things: odd-even triggers and, critically, access to rerolls.
Okay, let's break down odd-even triggers first. How do those help manage the risk? We saw an even trigger giving a bonus strike. What about odd?
Odd-even triggers often provide a benefit regardless of whether the number itself is good or bad in terms of the 1/6 scale. So let's say your Voltwing Rider rolls a 5 this time. That's a slice, risking the rough hazard normally bad.
Right, tempo loss incoming.
But maybe another ability on the rider, or perhaps a supporting relic, says, if this dragon's strike result is an odd number, it gains plus 100 DG until the start of your next turn.
Ah, okay. So even though I rolled a 5, which is inherently risky for the hazard, the odd trigger gives me the defensive boost. It softens the blow.
Exactly. You still face the hazard check, but you get a compensatory benefit. It turns a purely negative outcome into a mixed one. They find ways to get value even out of the bad half of the dice results.
That makes sense. But it doesn't stop the hazard itself. That 6, the shank, still feels like the killer.
Yeah.
That's where rerolls come in.
Rerolls are absolutely essential. They are the safety net. Remember, a 6 is a 1 in 6 chance, about 16.7%, of a potentially catastrophic outcome, losing the dragon, losing tempo, maybe losing a relic.
Yeah, that's a big risk if you're rolling multiple times a turn.
So having an ability, maybe on the dragon itself or often on a supporting relic, that says you may reroll 1 strike roll result of 6 per turn is invaluable. It turns that 16.7% chance of disaster into a second chance.
You still might roll another 6, I guess, but the odds are much better.
Much better. You drastically reduce the probability of that game-losing shank actually sticking. This ability to mitigate the absolute worst outcomes is what makes the high-speed multi-roll strategy viable for Stormscales. They bring the lightning, but they also bring the lightning rod.
Okay, that connects perfectly to the next point from the sources. Their hazard interaction. It says they're great at dodging or nullifying hazards. Given how brutal you described hazards being, this sounds less like a bonus and more like a survival requirement.
It really is. We need to underscore just how punishing landing in a hazard zone is. It's not just a temporary debuff usually.
Right, you said it takes them off the board or requires actions to fix. Can you detail that cost a bit more? Like what actually happens if my dragon hits the rough on a roll of 5?
Okay, so your dragon strikes, rolls a 5, it gets tagged with rough hazard. Now, on your next turn, to get it back into operational status, you likely have to spend your entire night command just initiating a hazard retrieval action.
My whole turn. Just to fix one dragon.
Often, yes, and sometimes you also have to discard a card from your hand as an additional cost. Then the dragon comes back to the Lance zone, but it typically gains an exhausted token or condition, meaning it still can't strike on the turn it's recovered.
Wow. So a single roll of 5 could cost me my current turn's attack, my next turn's entire command, maybe a card, and the dragon still can't attack immediately after recovery. That's devastating to tempo.
It absolutely is. You've essentially lost at least 1, maybe closer to 2, full turns of proactive play. That's deadly in a game like T-Legion.
Okay, now I see why a Stormscale ability that interacts with hazards is so huge.
Exactly. So if a Stormscale dragon has text like, upon rolling a 4 or 5, this dragon ignores the hazard roll result or nullify hazard, that's game-changing.
What does that mean in practice? They still rolled a 4 or 5.
It usually means they still suffer the basic consequence of the mishit, maybe slightly reduced damage or a less optimal final position, but they completely bypass the crippling hazard zone placement and the associated retrieval cost.
So they take the hit on damage or position, but they don't lose tempo. They stay active.
Precisely. They stay in their slot, ready to strike again next turn, or maybe even this turn if they chain.
Yeah.
They keep the pressure on. They turn that potential multi-turn disaster into just a minor stumble. That's adaptation is victory in mechanical form. They don't necessarily avoid the storm. They just ride it out without sinking.
They essentially convert catastrophic strategic failure into a manageable tactical setback.
Beautifully put. They take the hook, the slice, maybe even find ways to mitigate the shank's effects, if not the roll itself, and keep their high-speed engine running. That's the core of their resilience.
All right, let's zoom out a bit and think about what all these mechanics mean for overall game strategy. If Stormscales are built around getting extra actions and dodging the consequences of risk, Their number one goal has to be tempo, right?
Yeah, it seems unavoidable. In a game where the default is one action per turn, consistently finding ways to take 2 or 3 actions via chains, that's the definition of gaining tempo advantage. It's their entire game plan. That link to the takeaway, that initial burst, translates directly into trying to overwhelm the opponent early. They want to put so much pressure on the opponent's game points so quickly that the opponent can't establish their own strategy.
And because they're good at dodging hazards, their key strikers stay on the board more reliably than maybe other aggressive factions.
That's a huge part of it. A flaming dragon might hit harder, but if it shanks into the water, it's gone for potentially several turns. A Stormscale dragon might hit less hard on average, but if it can nullify the hazard from its own mishit, it stays in the fight, keeps applying pressure, keeps advancing yardage. It forces the opponent onto the back foot.
There's always a but. If they're all about speed and chains, they can't be amazing at everything. Their base stats probably aren't as tanky as Stonebacks or hit as hard inherently as Flamewings. They must have a weakness.
Oh, absolutely. They often sacrifice raw stats, particularly defensive ones like DG, for their speed and trigger potential. They can be fragile. A well-timed counterattack can sometimes take them out easily if their defenses aren't bolstered.
So they need support, something to shore up those weaknesses while they focus on chaining attacks.
Exactly. Which brings us to the crucial role of relics in a Stormscale deck. And specifically, one subclass of relics seems almost tailor-made for them, the caddy relics.
Ah, I love that flavor. The supercharged, chaotic dragon needing a calm, reliable caddy to keep it on the fairway. What do caddies actually do mechanically?
Caddy relics are fundamentally the variance control and support pieces in the game. Stormscales generate chaos and speed. Caddies provide the stability and guidance needed to survive that chaos. They often focus on boosting DG or providing passive GP recovery or protection, the exact things Stormscales often lack.
Can you give an example? How would a caddy directly help that Voltwing Rider we were talking about?
Sure, let's say Voltwing Rider has amazing speed, but kind of low base DG, making it vulnerable. You might play a caddy relic called, the Steady Bag Advisor. Its text could be a continuous effect like, friendly dragons currently in a hybrid slot gain plus 50 DG.
Ah, simple but effective. Just passively makes your key Stormscale Dragons tougher while they sit in their preferred 4H slot.
Exactly. It shores up that defensive weakness, making them much more likely to survive long enough to trigger their chains.
And do caddies help with the dice rolls themselves? Those risky 5s and 6s?
Very often, yes. That's maybe their most crucial role for Stormscales. A caddy might have an activated ability like, once per turn, pay some small cost to reroll one die result of 5 or 6 rolled for a friendly dragon strike.
There's that critical reroll again. So the caddy provides the safety net.
It absolutely does. It allows the Stormscale player to push their luck, go for those chain effects, knowing they have a backstop against the truly disastrous shank. The caddy essentially tames the storm, directing the energy rather than letting it run wild and destroy everything.
That synergy makes perfect sense. The dragon brings the speed and chaos. The caddy brings the control and endurance. A necessary partnership.
It really feels like the intended design. The knight, the player, needs that reliable caddy to manage the sheer power and unpredictability of the Stormscale Dragons under their command.
Okay, so pulling back to the big picture again. If you decide to play Stormscales, what's the overall risk versus reward profile you're signing up for?
You are explicitly choosing the variance faction. The potential reward is massive. Overwhelming tempo, huge bursts of damage from chain strikes, and the ability to win games very quickly, sometimes before your opponent feels like they've even started playing.
That sounds pretty good. What's the flip side? The risk.
The risk is equally high. Because you rely on those unpredictable triggers, those odd-even results, those chain effects. Sometimes they just don't line up. The dice go cold.
And if the chains break down?
Your engine stalls. Badly. You might have turns where you just get your single knight command and that's it, while your opponent is steadily building their board. Or worse, you might roll multiple hazards in a row, fail your reroll, and find your key dragons compromised or removed, completely losing that tempo you rely on. It's a faction that can self-destruct if the variance turns against you. High ceiling, low floor.
Definitely sounds like it rewards skillful play and maybe a bit of gambler's nerve. And this high-risk style must make them a natural enemy of factions built on consistency, like the Monk Legion.
Oh, absolutely. The contrast couldn't be clearer. The Monk Legion, as described in the sources, is all about resolve, defense, patience. They focus on high DG, high GP sustain, weathering the storm. They want the game to go long.
They thrive on stability and grinding out wins.
Exactly. They are designed to punish inconsistency. They wait for their opponent to stumble to make that risky play that fails, and then they capitalize. They are the attrition specialists.
So, for a Stormscale player facing monks, the clock is ticking. You have to win fast.
That's the matchup tension. The Stormscales must generate overwhelming pressure before the Monk Legion can stabilize and lock down the board with their superior defenses and resilience. It's a race against time. The Stormscales' explosive burst versus the Monks' inevitable, patient endurance. Speed versus stamina.
It really sounds like playing Stormscales is for someone who enjoys living on the edge, who trusts their ability to manage chaos, and knows exactly when to push their luck for that game-winning chain reaction.
That's the core appeal, I think. They look at a potential hazard roll not just as danger, but as raw energy. Can they adapt? Can they use their tools, the reroll from the caddy, the hazard nullification, to turn that potential disaster into the spark that ignites the winning sequence? That's the Stormscale challenge. #tagoutro.
Wow, what an incredible look into the sheer speed and complex machinery of the Stormscale Dragons. It really feels like if you choose this path in T-Legion, you're committing to mastering that hybrid slot, pushing for relentless tempo through chain combos.
All while embracing the chaos inherent in that takeaway phase energy.
And accepting that volatility, knowing your success hinges on managing those dice rolls, mitigating the bad ones with odd-even triggers, re-rolls, hazard dodging.
And leaning heavily on those caddy relics for the stability you otherwise lack. It's definitely a faction that demands quick thinking and adaptation from the player, not just the dragons.
It really does. Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, something to mull over. The Stormscales offer this very interesting strategic lesson, don't they? It's not just about playing perfectly and avoiding mistakes.
Right, because mistakes, or at least mishits, are inevitable with that D6 roll.
Exactly. True mastery, the Stormscales seem to suggest, lies in how you control the chaos when things go wrong. If they can adapt mid-swing, turning a potential shank into maybe just a minor setback, or even fuel for their next move.
It makes you wonder.
Yeah. What unexpected hazard or moment of volatility in your own life, your own plans, maybe on the actual golf course, maybe metaphorically isn't just a problem, but potentially an opening, an opportunity for a surprising lightning-fast chain combo play you hadn't considered.
Where could embracing and managing a bit of chaos actually lead you to victory?
Something to think about. Join us next time for another deep dive.